For many people, both French and foreign, something uncomfortable lurks in the name Vichy, as it calls to mind first and foremost the provisional French government of the years 1940 to 1944 that collaborated with Nazi Germany's occupation of France. Only rarely does Vichy evoke an actual living town in the center of the country, just under 3 hours by train from Paris. Visit Vichy and you'll soon have in mind not the waste and manipulation of war, but rather the echo and life of one of the great spa towns of pre-war France. In fact, it was the thriving spa town and its then modern facilities, infrastructures, and communication system that incited the French government in July 1940 to call this their temporary capital since the Germans occupied Paris. A plaque inside Vichy's Opera House indicates that it was here that on July 10, 1940, the National Assembly voted full power to Field Marshal Philippe Pétain, thus ending France's Third Republic. It actually states that the other way around, stating that 80 members of the National Assembly, out of 649, voted to, quote, affirm their attachment to the Republic, their love for freedom, and their faith in victory. Notice the way in which the small minority are applauded here rather than the vast majority condemned. Either way, it was here that was created what became known as the Vichy government. As significant as that plaque is, one doesn't come to the town of Vichy to contemplate the war years. The Vichy of Vichy, France, and the Vichy government is better understood elsewhere. The Vichy of splendor, luxury, and well-being, on the other hand, is best understood by entering the theater where that vote took place. There you'll find one of the most stunning Art Nouveau theaters anywhere. I'll return to that in a bit, but let's first step back further to Vichy's origins as a major resort town. In July 1861, French Emperor Napoleon III came to visit what was then a small, budding resort. He came to take the waters, the natural hot springs along the Allier River, so as to find relief from his rheumatism. By the time he left 4 weeks later, he had thrown his full imperial weight behind the town's development. A town of leisure and luxury began growing immediately. Boosting Vichy's place on the map in the 1860s naturally implied the construction of a new train station, now the town's old station, and urban planning in the streets radiating from the station to the hot springs, a distance of about half-mile that is the commercial heart of the town. A row of chalets, including the Emperor's home, also date from Vichy's imperial era. Napoleon III took the waters at Vichy each summer from 1861 to 1866. He might have returned again in 1870, but he was kept away by the developing conflict with Prussia, which led to the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War and the fall of his regime, at which point he was exiled to England. Here is one of the most emblematic architectural sites of Vichy, its casino, which is now its convention center. It's emblematic because jutting out from its Napoleon III facade, a sign of its first golden age, is an airy Art Nouveau glass canopy added in 1900, during Vichy's second golden age. The most stunning example of Art Nouveau, however, is the adjacent theater or opera house that I mentioned earlier. It was inaugurated in 1902. The ivory, yellow, and gold interior so exudes a sense of leisure and the leisure class that show or no show, you could easily sit here for a couple of hours without intermission. Its central park, the Parc des Sources, lies between the casino opera complex and the main building where medical spa goers and non-medical visitors can come to drink a dose of Vichy water. Covered walkways border the triangular park leading between the two. At the edge of the park is the Thermes du Dôme, the thermal baths of the Dôme, the former first-class spa complex dating from 1903, again the height of Art Nouveau. The complex had a men's wing and a women's wing, and each wing had at its far end 2 grand luxury suites consisting of a dunking pool, a bathroom, and a lounge room. Those high luxury rooms at the Thermes du Dôme are no longer in use and aren't open to the public, but visitors can freely enter the central portion of the complex, beneath the dome, to see the wonderfully serene mural painting at the entrance to what used to be the women's wing. Here are some views of private homes from Vichy's second golden age, 1880 to 1914. There was a lot of neo-whatever going on at the time. Many of the great palace hotels of Vichy were built, transformed, or expanded during this period. A 5-minute walk from the Parc des Sources near Lake Allier gurgles the spring known as the Source des Célestins. It's freely open to the public and is the best place to fill your water bottle before enjoying a stroll along the lakeside promenade. The third golden age of Vichy came after World War I. Contrasting with the arches, curves, and floral aesthetic of Art Nouveau, the streamlined grace of Art Deco developed in the 1920s into the late 1930s. at which point aesthetics themselves were decimated in Europe. Vichy fully embraced the new style. Compare this Art Deco image of bathing women with the Art Nouveau image we saw earlier at the thermal baths. This one is in the lobby of a sweet little theater in town. But the most appealing Art Deco details are the stained glass windows in the stairwell going up to the theater, dating from 1926. Here's comedy. Here's music, or the orchestra. Here's tragedy. In the same quarter of the city, St. Blaise Church also takes Art Deco as its article of decorative faith. Art Deco villas dot the town, mixed in with villas and hotels from earlier periods. One Art Deco villa served as the American embassy to France from 1940 to 1942. The street is named Boulevard des États-Unis, Boulevard of the United States, a name that it had prior to the war and managed to maintain despite the conflict. It's strange to imagine that the U.S. had an embassy in Vichy, even once the U.S. and Germany were officially at war in December 1941. Relations with the Vichy government, never very direct in any case, degraded through 1942 until the Vichy government cut diplomatic relations with the U.S. in the fall of that year. In the center of town there's a plaque indicating that an American military hospital was set up there in 1918 to care for the wounded well away from the front of World War I. Notice that it's ridden with bullet holes, pot shots taken by French militiamen during World War II. You want the dark side of Vichy? You can find it. But the traveler visiting Vichy needn't seek the dark side, but rather its easy, languid light of imperial development, of Art Nouveau splendor, of Art Deco grace, of warm, soothing baths, long, slow promenades, and a pleasing sense of discovery.